Welcome to this podcast, and before going ahead, I'd love to say that I hope you enjoy this podcast, and of course it's subject to the disclaimers that I've mentioned already, and if you've got any queries then do go to the website and have a look at those. I hope you enjoy this podcast. To recap, a company came to me and said that a freelancer who had contributed to the company's IP at the start of the company's journey now wanted 25% of the company about 10 years later. I was advising Bob and I asked Bob for what the so-called letter of claim said. This was the letter that was sent to Bob from the claimant. It turned out that Bob said that he actually just received an email setting out his claim and he had forwarded on the email to me. Whilst I waited for Bob to send the email over, I thought about how I had known Bob for about 5 years and I really liked his ethos. He'd started the company with friends and now it was super successful and valued at about £50 million. I think I liked Bob because I shared his values of hard work, dedication and honesty, and although he was sometimes a bit grumpy, he was good at heart and that's why I liked him. So I was going to do my best to try and see off this claim if I could. Bob's email pinged into my inbox and I gave it a read. I've got to say that even though I've seen thousands of these types of emails and letters of claim, it doesn't get any easier to read them. I think I go through a stream of thoughts as I go through the email or letter of claim. Firstly, shock at what is being said and the amounts being claimed. Then a bit of annoyance sometimes at the sense of entitlement shown in the letter, particularly if the letter or email is written in a kind of lofty tone. And then a feeling of thinking that I must, and repeat must, figure out what exactly is going on, as nothing is as straightforward as it seems when you receive one of these letters. What was I missing? I walked around the block for a while and some questions immediately sprang to mind. The first thing that sprung to mind was that the email was written in a non-legal way. This immediately swung me towards suggesting that Bob respond in kind without using any kind of formal legalese or lawyer's letter. This would at least try to keep the things low key at the outset. I think that writing formally and in a legal kind of tone might up the stakes at the outset, and that was not what we wanted. The second thing that I was thinking about was questions. We needed way more information about what was required from the claimant and what was Bob being asked to do. Why had the claimant waited for about 10 years and claimed now? Where did the claimant's claim for 25% of the company come from? Of course, the claimant might say that they contributed a quarter, but that was way back then. That was not now. So there were a lot of questions that I needed to ask. The third thing was timing. Timing would be important. The claimant didn't set a deadline for responding, so we had some time to respond, and also delaying a response may deflate a claimant somewhat if it was hoping to shake Bob with this initial email. The fourth thing I was thinking about was tone. The email was written in quite an aggressive way. My inkling was to actually use the art of not going head to head, but to respond and not to react. There's a big difference. Hence, a calmly worded email back would be the basis of my response to the claimant. I met Bob in the office and we agreed that we would construct a letter which was non-legal, had lots of questions about the claim, would be sent back in a couple of weeks, and the tone of the email would be calm and considered. Hence, I think that was the way we were going to respond. There's one thing that nobody really talks about in litigation, and I think I might touch on it now, and that's the feelings. The feelings when you get a litigation letter are pretty shocking, and I think it's always worth bearing in mind that that's the intention of the letter and the writer, to shock, to somehow get a knockout punch, to somehow make you submit to their demands and pay whatever's required immediately. However, with a bit of calm, with a bit of consideration, I think going back with the right tone, asking the right questions, and actually finding out more from a sense of curiosity is definitely a good way to go forward. So that's what we're going to do with Bob in this case. Please do log into the next podcast to see what happened next.